How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Funnel Vision Show, where we talk with marketing experts and dive into how they can help you grow your marketing agency and just become better marketers overall. And today is no different. I've got a very, very special guest on today's show. He's written 12 books, sold over 1 million copies of his books, spoken on stages all over the world. He's friends with the CEO of, or former CEO at least, of HubSpot. He's done so many things across the digital marketing and marketing space in general. I've got David Meerman Scott with me. How you doing, David?
Hey, Michael, doing great. How are you? Good to be on. Good to be on with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I'm super excited to chat with you and pick your brain for the next kind of 20 minutes. It's going to be a lot of fun. As we always do here at the Funnel Vision Show, I always start with your not so humble bragging rights. So basically, what have you been able to do for clients? What have you been able to do for yourself? Why should people kind of listen to this episode?
Okay, I'm gonna give you three things because I do like the brag stuff here going on. So number one, and these are just things that are exciting for me. But number one, I've been speaking on Tony Robbins' stage now for 11 years, something like 25 different events. I'm Tony's lead marketing speaker in his business mastery program. I have a 2-hour time slot with something like 2,500 people in the room. As we're recording this, I did it last week. It's super fun. Tony's awesome. His program is awesome, and it's a fabulous stage to be on. Number two, I have a word I invented that's in the Oxford English Dictionary. The word is newsjacking, and I'm hopeful we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But the idea of newsjacking is if you understand the news cycle, and every news cycle always breaks the same way, you can inject your ideas into that breaking story, a breaking news story, to generate attention, get leads, grow business, and it's something every agency needs to know about. And a new one for me, not a new book. This is an old book. It's called Marketing the Moon, which came out about 10 years ago. It's about the marketing and public relations aspects of the Apollo lunar program. I wrote it with my buddy Rich Jurek, and the last man to walk on the moon, Gene Cernan, wrote the foreword. But get this, the movie that came out in the summer of 2024, as we're recording it just a couple of weeks ago, called Fly Me to the Moon, was based on my book. So how crazy is it? Yes, marketers, there can be a major $100 million Hollywood movie based on a marketing book.
On what you do and what you market. And that's, man, that's incredible. You've clearly done like a crazy wide range of things, right? You've gone through this cycle in your career, and I'm curious how it started. Let's kind of humble you a little bit, because you certainly weren't speaking on Tony Robbins' stage in the early days. You weren't writing all these books. So let's take it back a little bit and walk me through kind of what does that journey look like, the ups and downs and all that.
I get bored easily, which is why I have to constantly do something new. But when I got out of college, I thought I wanted to work on a bond trading desk. It seemed exciting at the time. The movie Wall Street had come out around that period of time. I thought, oh, cool, I'll work on Wall Street. So I actually got a job on a Wall Street bond trading desk. Oh my God, did I hate it? Oh my God, I was terrible at it. And I thought to myself, what in the world am I getting myself into in a windowless room, staring into screens, barking into telephones with testosterone-fueled guys around me? This is horrible. So I quickly escaped. But what I really loved, and this was pre-web, what I really loved was the information that the bond traders were using. From companies like Dow Jones and Reuters and Bloomberg. Wow, that's cool, I thought to myself. Real-time information, again, pre-web. When I would tell people about real-time information, they would have absolutely no idea what I was talking about because there were so few people who actually had access to it. So I was really lucky because then and I worked for some technology companies that delivered real-time information for about 15 years. And when I started my own business back in 2002, when the dawn of the internet era, the dawn of online marketing, what soon became inbound marketing or social media marketing, what I call the new rules of marketing, started to emerge, I already had an unfair advantage, a head start, because I already knew what real-time information was. I already knew what real-time news is. I already knew what it was like to create content, because the companies I was working for and the bond trading desk I worked on used that every day for their businesses. So that was super cool. And that got me started in what I'm doing now, as you kindly said, writing books, giving speeches, advising clients, mainly for equity are my advisory clients. And you mentioned HubSpot. I've been on their advisory board since 2007. That's 17 years now. And it's been a great ride, but I think I can look all the way back to getting out of college and jumping onto a bond trading desk and hating it, but loving the information behind it.
It's funny. I jumped out of college and went into civil engineering, and I used to do AutoCAD drawings, like drawing like line drawings, for hours, 8 hours a day, all day, every day.
You were like, what the heck did I get myself into?
Why did I sign up as an engineer? Is this what they do? This is terrible. Okay, so tell me, like, because you switched over, you realized I'm certainly not cut out for Wall Street, and now you decided to start a company. What kind of company was it?
Well, I just started doing what I'm doing now. So I'm on my own. I have no employees, but I advise companies mainly for equity. I write books, I give speeches, and that's what I did starting in 2002. So I had worked for different technology companies like Dow Jones and Reuters, some smaller companies in that space. And I was always in the marketing side of those businesses that I worked for. So I was vice president of marketing of several different publicly traded companies. So I understood marketing and I understood online information. That was the perfect combination in 2002 when I started getting going to create a practice around how to use online information to get noticed, to get sales leads, to generate business. I was just fortunate to have been super, super early in that world when there weren't that many people online when I started doing it in the late 90s. And I, like I said earlier, I think I had an unfair head start because I'd already been doing marketing. So since 2002, that's 22 years, I've been focused on the same thing, helping people to understand how to use these ideas of digital marketing. And as you obviously know, and every single listener obviously knows, that world has evolved and changed significantly since I started doing it way back in 2002.
I want to ask you about that. Like, how has it changed from your perspective? Obviously, you've written 12 books, and one of them, New Rules of Marketing. So, before you answer that question, I kind of want to understand, what was that tipping point? Like, where was like, I'm going to start advising people on this. Like, I'm going to start writing books on this. Like, what changed in your mindset, or was it a specific event? Was it a specific thing?
It was very much a specific event. I was working for a small information company called Newsedge. We were about $70 million in revenue. I was the vice president of marketing. We were a publicly traded company, and we were acquired by this giant organization, Thomson, now Thomson Reuters. And so as the acquisition happened, it was 2001, and the actual deal literally was supposed to close on September 11th, 2001. It did eventually close a couple of weeks later, but all of a sudden, I'm now not an employee of a small company as head of marketing, but I'm part of a big, giant machine of a company. And they fired me because my ideas about marketing were pretty radical. I mean, at that time, this was late 2001, early 2002, I was saying we should be marketing by putting information on the web. We should be doing email newsletters. We should be creating great content. Nobody really talked about the idea of search engine marketing, but I said, hey, people are finding us through the search engines. And at that time, it was typically Yahoo and Alta Vista and some of these other search engines rather than Google. And we're doing a great job. People are searching for what we do and they're finding us. We should double down on this. And my bosses said, no, we don't do that kind of marketing here. Let's do some more direct mail. And in fact, the biggest line item in the marketing budget at that time literally was postage. And so I was a little too radical, a little too disruptive for my bosses, and I ended up getting fired. And in 2002, the market for vice presidents of marketing did not exist because it was a really uncertain time because of 9/11. So I at first didn't have a choice. I had to go out on my own. But then I quickly, very quickly, in a couple of months, generated enough clients that I was making more money than I was as a vice president of marketing of a public company. And I thought, this is pretty cool. I can do whatever I want. I can pick and choose clients. I started my blog in 2004. My first nonfiction book came out in 2005. The New Rules of Marketing and PR is my international bestseller. And this guy originally came out in 2007 in the first edition. This is the 9th edition, came out summer of 2024, just this week as we're recording this, Michael. And in all of the editions, 9 editions, it sold 500,000 copies. It's available in 29 different languages. But I was, you asked a simple question. I gave a really long answer, but the simple answer was I got sacked and I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And being a vice president of marketing wasn't in the cards for me. Thankfully, actually, the best career decision I ever made was getting sacked. And that wasn't even my decision. So
you had no control over it, but it worked out for the right reasons. So let's then talk now, because again, you've written so many books. You've gone through this cycle. You saw and were part of HubSpot, who's now at $1 billion or over that now, and they started the inbound marketing trend. So from your perspective, as you kind of reflect back, what has really the evolution of marketing, online marketing specifically, look like from a macro perspective? Talk me through your thoughts on that.
Great question. So I see a couple of different milestones. When I first started, late 1990s into very early 2000s, initially working for companies and then on my own, it was an idea that I pioneered. Maybe other people had the idea, but I was absolutely the first person to talk about it, that online marketing was not an advertising metaphor. In other words, it wasn't about buying banner ads, which is what everybody else was doing. Instead, online marketing was about creating amazing content. And at that time, we really only had the web and websites, but about creating amazing content. And so I talked about that for a number of years. But then I don't remember the exact date, but it was around 2010. Something radical happened and nobody saw it. Nobody wrote about it. And I was one of the very few that did. And that was Google went real time. So if you remember, those of you who are old enough to remember back to marketing pre 2010, so in the 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9 era, when you updated a website, for example, if you created a blog post, it took a month or 2 months for Google and the other search engines to index it. Oh my God, that's like a million years in internet life. But then Google changed the way their algorithm worked and the way they crawled websites and the way they crawled blogs. And Google went real time. And I thought to myself, this is the most important thing to happen to online marketing ever. And I started to write about it. I started to talk about it. A little bit earlier than that, Twitter launched. And Twitter was launched as a real-time service. It wasn't about posting something like on Facebook and your friends eventually will see it, because that was before the Facebook newsfeed really kicked into gear. But Twitter was about, hey, push this out. People will see it instantly. If they follow you, they'll see it instantly. That was radical too, about the same time. 2007 was the first iPhone. So now all of a sudden we're mobile with real-time information. Super, super, super important. And then the next really big line in the sand, and we're all living this right now, I think, is artificial intelligence. And I've been writing and speaking about artificial intelligence for 5 years. I'm on the board of an AI company called Lately.ai. I'm an investor or an advisor in several other AI companies, including the Marketing AI Institute. So I'm pretty deep into AI in the marketing world. But of course, and pre-ChatGPT, but of course, ChatGPT and the other large language models radically change things. And as I see it, super important for marketers to understand how to use and leverage AI. However, very important to be thinking about whose data are you using? Because most marketers are using public internet data. In other words, they're going to ChatGPT and saying, write a blog post for me. But I think the value, and this is what I see successful people doing, is how can you use AI to manipulate your own content, not other people's content, but your own content. Makes it easier to create content, makes it easier to multi-purpose content. It makes it easier to take audio and video and make it into text and vice versa. So that's the next radical change that we are currently all going through right now.
Yeah, it's I think HubSpot actually released relatively recently a feature. They call it Content Remix, where you could take your content and use AI to just transform it into all sorts of different types of assets that can be deployed. What about search? What are your thoughts on AI based search? Because I mean, I'm starting, like, just me personally out of experience, I'm starting to use either Bing's AI or I'm using ChatGPT to search stuff. And now it's no longer about like what is the top 10 things on Google based on this keyword, because I'm just asking a question. I'm just getting my answer. So where do you think that's going?
So I've been writing and speaking about this a lot because I think it's absolutely fascinating. As a content creator, I think it's fascinating as well. So, for years, decades actually, search was about the blue links. And, Yahoo and whatever surfaced blue links. Google surfaced blue links. Alta Vista surfaced blue links. And the metaphor completely changed with ChatGPT. But originally, it was just about a paragraph or two or a couple of paragraphs about the query you made. But which did not surface in the beginning a year ago, did not surface the source of that content. So here I am, I'm a content creator. If I would go into ChatGPT and say, what is newsjacking ? I see my work in there. But there's no credit. They're not linking to me. They're not linking to my newsjacking.com website. If I search in there marketing, something like, what are some marketing lessons from the Grateful Dead? I wrote a book called Marketing Lessons from the Grateful Dead. They're surfacing my stuff, but they're not giving me credit. So I think the future of AI-driven search, and what all marketers need to understand, is a hybrid model. And the best example I know of that is Perplexity. It's a search engine that if you enter a search term, you get a ChatGPT-like paragraph, but you also get the citations of where that paragraph was generated from. And there's others that do the same thing, but that's where we're going, because it's not going to be a matter of just copying others' work like mine and other people's from the public internet and surfacing it without citations. There's already been a lot of lawsuits around that, and it's not as valuable as being able to dig in deeper as someone who's doing a search. But for we marketers, that's great, because there was a short period of time for a couple of months where a lot of us thought that our hard-earned search engine optimization was going to be completely disrupted. Now, it is being disrupted because only the top several search terms are typically being surfaced, but we still have opportunities to get our information out there so that these new hybrid models like Perplexity, and you mentioned Bing, another good example, are surfacing your content even within the context of the paragraph AI-generated answer to your query.
And I could talk for hours on AI and where it's going. I love this topic. I think it's extremely fascinating. But unfortunately, we are running out of time. And I do want to ask the one question that we ask everybody. And I think this kind of leads into, I'm hoping you're going to lead it into what I think you're going to, which is, what is your number one best growth tactic that any company, any marketer could basically leverage, that you feel is universal across the board? I'm hoping you're going to say what I think you're going to say.
Perhaps I'm going to say what you're thinking, but I love the idea of newsjacking, and it's something that we can all use. It's something that not that many organizations do use, and it's also something that's deeply misunderstood. So newsjacking is when you know about what the news cycle looks like. And every news cycle always breaks exactly the same way. It begins to gain an interest. It eventually peaks and then trails off. So as it's gaining interest and you're going up that curve, that's when, if you have a tie to that story, you have expertise around the story, you create a real-time blog post, you create some interesting information, you do a YouTube video, you speak from a podium, you do a tweet with a hashtag, but you get information out there based on your area of expertise, because the public is looking for people who know about that particular news story. The media is looking for people to quote about that particular news story. People are eager to learn more about what that particular story is implying. And that is your real time. And I emphasize real time. It's about right now. It's about canceling meetings to create content. Tomorrow is too late. Tonight is too late. It's about right now and creating that content. So, two comments on this to get going. Number one, a lot of people misunderstand newsjacking because they think it's taking a story, any old story, and creating content around it. Oh, Taylor Swift is going on tour. I should create content about Taylor Swift. No, unless you have a tie to something related to Taylor Swift. For example, if your company makes speakers used in concert venues, cool, Taylor Swift going on tour. Let's talk about what her stadium tour concert speaker setup is. Great, you're right on target. But that's not just something for someone, oh, we make software, Taylor Swift is on tour, let's write about it. So I'll give you a quick example. I mentioned earlier, I wrote this book, Marketing the Moon. All of a sudden, a major motion picture, $100 million budget, starring Scarlett Johansson, Channing Tatum, comes out based on the book. And everyone wants to know, is the marketing aspects of the story in that movie, Fly Me to the Moon, real? Is it based on the truth? There's one person on the planet qualified to answer that question. It's me. So I jumped out there. I started to create content. I was interviewed on in a number of different places. Ended up getting quoted in Vanity Fair, in USA Today. There were stories in a bunch of different blogs, and I did a search for my name and the movie's name, Fly Me to the Moon, and there were a bunch of different references to it. So that opportunity went away quickly. I couldn't do it right now. No one cares about that movie right now because it came out a few weeks ago. So the moment is right, absolutely right now, not tomorrow, not even tonight, not even 2 hours from now in some cases. So you got to get that out really, really quickly. Finally, one more point. This really is helpful for the whole hybrid and AI related search, because that content will live forever. And all of a sudden you are tied to that news story. Someone does research on that news story, research on, in my case, that film, you still pop up even a few years from now. So newsjacking is my answer to what is the technique that all digital marketers should be jumping into for themselves and on behalf of their clients.
It is the one that I was hoping you would talk about, and I'm glad you kind of broke it down in this way. I think a lot of people do it wrong. Like you say, they go and say, hey, it was the Olympics. Let me just post a meme about an Olympic and hope that it kind of works, but it never does. So, David, we are out of time, but thank you so much. Where can people learn more about you?
Meermanscott.com. I use my middle name, Meerman, in all of my professional endeavors because there's a whole hell of a lot of David Scotts out there. So I'm the only David Meerman Scott, davidmeermanscott.com, or Google my name. If you want to learn more about newsjacking, newsjacking.com has a ton of stuff. Most of the social media sites, I am DM Scott, DMSCOTT.
Awesome. Thank you so much. See, I don't have that problem. There's very few Mikkel Diaz in the world. So
the way your name is spelled. Yeah, that's awesome.
There's very few of them. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing all this insight and this wisdom to us.
My pleasure. Great to be on. Thanks so much.